Hey everyone, happy Friday. I hope you all are doing well today and that you've had a good week. So welcome to another lovely edition of Pagan Happy Hour. So I will be checking the chat as we go along, and if you could, please let me know that you can see and hear me okay. So just type that you can quickly hear and see me so I know that everything's working technology-wise. And we have a very fun live chat today that I have planned. There's a lot going on, a lot that we need to cover, and let's dive into it. But before we do, I would love to hear from you guys in the chat where you are watching from and what you're drinking today. I have a nice red wine. I was planning on having some mulled wine, but I got a little bit busy today, so I didn't have enough time to do a proper mulled wine. But I'd love to hear where you guys are from and what you are drinking for happy hour today. So I'll just check your comments here while I have a sip. Okay, let's see. I see people from Miami, Pennsylvania, Chile, Maine, Phoenix, Maryland, oh my gosh, England, Kentucky, Germany. Germany, it must be late over there, I bet. Let's see, Iowa, British Columbia, all over the place. And it looks like you guys are drinking, let's see, tea, coffee, Sailor Jerry. Wow, that sounds good. Orange juice, let's see. Pumpkin spiced mead. Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. Let's see, a lot of you guys drinking beer, wine. Someone's drinking cranberry mojitos. That sounds very festive. So wonderful. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. So it's a bit of an extra special edition of Pagan Happy Hour because we have Yule just around the corner. So today we're going to be talking about different ways that you can celebrate Yule. But before we get into that, I wanted to talk about astrology a bit, which is a bit weird for me because I am not an astrologer. I personally don't know that much about astrology. But we have a very unusual Yule this year, a very unusual winter solstice. And that is because the winter solstice falls on the time when Jupiter and Saturn are going to be conjuncting. So it's called the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. Have you guys heard of it, or are you guys interested in astrology? I'd love to hear from you guys what you've heard about it, but I've done a bit of research and it's pretty interesting what's going on. So I thought we'd cover a bit about that, and then we'll dive into some more Yule topics. And of course, as I'm chatting, I'll be checking the chat the whole time. So feel free to add any comments or questions so I can bring you into the conversation. But yeah, so the winter solstice, and which we call Yule, or many of us call Yule, this year is occurring on Monday. So that's going to be the 21st, and it's specifically occurring at 5:02 a.m. Eastern, I believe. So if you are interested in being awake at the exact moment of the solstice, you're going to have to wake up early this year. But there can be some fun magic that you can do with time. And a lot of people like to time certain spells or chants or talismans. So keep that in mind if you are planning on doing something, that if you want it to match the exact moment of the winter solstice, it's going to be around 5:02 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So what's unusual about this particular Yule, this particular winter solstice, is the Great Conjunction is also occurring on the 21st, which is crazy and exciting and a bit nerve-wracking. But it's happening about 8 hours after the winter solstice. So it's occurring at, let me check my notes here, 1:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So keep that in mind as well if you are wanting to do any Jupiterian or Saturnian magic. 1:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time would be a great time to do that. So I had to do some initial research because, as I said, I am not an astrologer, and there are so many people who are way more knowledgeable about this topic than me. But this particular Jupiter-Saturn conjunction is also unusual because it's going to be happening really close to the Earth. So we'll be able to see it with the naked eye, which is exciting. So definitely go outside, try and see if you can see it. And also, because they're going to be so close, it's going to look like one planet, which is kind of cool, right? And as far as I know, in ancient times, the astronomers and astrologers in ancient Greece and Rome, they could only see to Saturn. That was the last planet that was visible. Uranus and Pluto were not visible, and Neptune wasn't visible during ancient times. So the first 7 planets, those are called like the 7 celestial spheres. So a lot of planetary magic only includes the planets up to Saturn. But so this particular Jupiter-Saturn conjunction has not been this close to the Earth since 1623. So you're definitely going to want to see if you can go outside and see it in person, because this is really exciting. An odd fact too about Christianity. So I learned today that the Star of Bethlehem, which supposedly signified the birth of Jesus, was presumed to have happened during the Great Conjunction. So it wasn't actually a star, it was the conjunction that was shining so bright in the sky, and they named the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction the Star of Bethlehem. So that's kind of neat. I didn't know that before. It also happened in the sign of Pisces, the fish. Of course, fish being a popular symbol in Christianity. But also Pisces as a whole is a sign that's very much tied to religion and spirituality. So kind of neat, that little Christian, fact there. So this particular great conjunction is going to be happening at 0 degrees Aquarius. And some people are saying this conjunction is kind of like heralding the Aquarian age. And I'm sure you've probably heard about the Age of Aquarius, right? There's that song, The Age of Aquarius. So people don't know exactly when these ages begin or start. It's kind of mostly thought that we're in like the beginning stage of the Age of Aquarius. And this great conjunction is kind of kickstarting that. So a lot of people are talking about, well, what does that mean? What is this dawning of the Age of Aquarius going to actually mean in our lives? I mean, the world is changing and evolving so quickly nowadays, and this year has definitely been stressful. So it's going to be really exciting to see how the future plays out now that we're kind of in this new age. I'm checking your comments here just a second before I move on. So let's see. Oh, I see someone says, hopefully this great conjunction now will be the sign of a new era for humanity with more respect to each other and to Earth. Me too, I'm hoping that, for sure. And so even more exciting than this great conjunction happening in the sign of 0 degrees Aquarius, this is also what's called a great mutation. So the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction happens every 20 years, but every 200 years, the conjunction happens in a new sign. So you think about the 4 classical signs, earth, air, fire, water. And the last several conjunctions have been happening in the element of earth. And the Great Mutation is referring to, well, now this conjunction and future conjunctions for 200 years are going to be happening in an air sign, right? In Aquarius. So that's a big shift as well. And it makes you think about this transition from Earth energy to air energy. So if the past 200 years, this great conjunction has occurred in Earth, I believe it was in Taurus, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but Earth energy is very practical, very much about gathering resources and money and finances and tangible goods and careers and thinking very down to earth, right? So we've been in this earth energy for quite a while, but now we're shifting to air. So that could be really interesting for our society, right? And I think we've started to see a little bit of that shift already. Air, to me, it's a sign about, or it's an element about the mind. It represents intellect. It represents ideas, thoughts, creativity, intelligence. So if we're shifting away from earth, which could be like monetary gains, tangible assets, accumulation of wealth and power, now we're moving away to something that is airy, more intangible, creativity, new ideas, innovation. Also, I tend to think technology is ruled by the element air, so that could be good or bad potentially. But maybe this new era we're in could represent that ideas, innovation becomes more important than financial resources as a status symbol in society. And I think that could be a breath of fresh air. And it could be really exciting. I mean, I really hope this new era that we're entering is valuing ideas and intelligence and creativity, because we've been valuing money for so long, and there's nothing wrong with that, and we all need to do that to a certain extent, but I think it's been the prominent driving factor of our society. And it could be neat to see with this shift to air if the next 200 years are going to be more dedicated towards ideas. So that's a little bit of what I'm hoping. Definitely the internet and technology as a whole, I view it as if you had to pick a deity that ruled technology and the internet, I would pick Mercury, the great messenger, the god of speed, right? And things do seem to only be getting quicker. But at the same time, our knowledge has increased so much, and so much knowledge is at our fingertips that often we face difficulties like being overwhelmed, which is of course a struggle, but at the same time, it's really exciting. And this shift could be something really neat. Of course, the rest of our life now, because I doubt we're going to live past 200, is going to be during the conjunction cycle that's occurring in an air sign. So really exciting. In the comments, let me know if you've heard anything else about the Great Conjunction or the Great Mutation that you'd like to share, or any other ideas on what this shift from earth energy to air energy might be. I'm going to read your comments, take a sip of my wine here, and see what you guys have to say. Let's see. I see someone says, I love the idea of being alive to witness this change in the universe, in our world. I'm extremely excited. Me too. That's a great attitude towards looking at it. Someone mentions Bitcoin being the pagan currency. Bitcoin's fascinating too when you think about that shift to earth and air in terms of tangible assets. We are kind of making that shift to money that is less material, less touchable. Perhaps Bitcoin is going to take off. Who knows? I don't have any Bitcoin yet, but maybe I should look into it. Let's see. Ooh, someone mentions that Loki would be a deity connected to technology. That's interesting too, and I like that because I was mentioning Mercury, but Loki fits in well as the trickster or any type of trickster deity. As we know, the internet has really changed up how we view things, has caused a lot of issues as well. Let's see. Someone mentions the energy levels are off the scale as we come into feminine energy with Mother Earth. Well, we definitely need a little bit more Mother Earth energy right now, or that feminine vibe to take care of Mother Earth. That doesn't mean that you have to be female to embrace that feminine energy, right? Anyone can embrace that. Let's see. Yeah, so many good comments here. Someone mentions, this is the time for decisions of your life. Love what you want to accomplish. Interesting. People are mentioning the possibilities are endless. Yeah, great comments, guys. Yeah, this is going to be really interesting time. Ooh, I see someone, Dylan is mentioning, I would have seen Myrmir as the god of technology, at least computers, a well of knowledge connected by roots. It sounds like the internet. That's a great insight. I never thought about that, but now that you mention it, it definitely fits pretty well. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I see someone mentions that they're excited for this shift, but I hope that the capitalism power decreases and the need for more meaningful gifts and gifts from the universe becomes more prominent. Definitely. That's a great comment. So yeah, thank you guys for sharing your thoughts here. And next we're going to dive into a bit about Yule. I've been covering Yule for pretty much this whole month. Usually in December, I do a lot of content that is Yule related. Last year, I dived into kind of the pagan origins of Santa Claus. I dived into why Christians celebrate on the 25th and what that has to do with the solstice being celebrated on the 21st. I've done Yule altar videos before. I've done lots of Yule videos. This year we dived into Krampus and the Yule goat. And next week, my video, I'll let you guys know what it is ahead of time, is about wassailing. And I think I saw a comment earlier on in the live that someone's drinking wassail today, which is very, very cool. And wassailing's super fascinating. When I was doing my research for that, there is so many like pagan undercurrents with that tradition, because wassail can be a drink that you drink. It can be something you do, the act of wassailing, singing to the orchards, or some people, it's more of a door-to-door thing. It ties into Lord of Misrule concepts that go all the way back to Saturnalia. There is so many fascinating things. And the first mention of wassail comes from Beowulf, which is a pagan literary work. So keep an eye out for that. Video I'll probably go ahead and release it on Yule. Usually I release my videos on Wednesday, but might as well just release it on Monday since I finished it up today. So that's going to be probably my last Yule video of the season, but it's been fun, and you guys have given me so many great Yule ideas for next year. There's so many topics when it comes to this pagan holiday that I feel like each December I'm just going to be cranking out more Yule videos, and I'm not going to run out of ideas. So I thought I would talk a bit about some things you can do to celebrate Yule, especially if you're new to paganism. You know, you might be unsure of how to celebrate. And as I'm chatting, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments how you guys will be celebrating Yule this year. Now, the first thing that makes it tricky as a pagan living in a society that's mostly dictated by the Abrahamic religions is, do you celebrate just on Yule, the 21st, or are you also celebrating Christmas with family members, that's always been a tricky thing. And each pagan goes about it differently, usually based on their family and what their family celebrates. And everyone has their own ideas on what you should or shouldn't do. For me personally, I am the only pagan in my family. I have a pretty small family. I'm an only child, so I'm going to be celebrating the holidays with my husband and my mom, and that's it. So it'll just be 3 people this year. And because I am the only pagan, what I do is I celebrate Yule for myself on the 21st. So I do my own little celebrations. Sometimes I do different things. I'll usually make a nice dinner, and I'll do, maybe some offerings, things like that. But I do still celebrate on the 25th with my family because, I think it would be a little rude not to, right? And since I am the only pagan, I want to be accommodating to others. And I'd love to hear, what do you guys do? Do you guys only celebrate Yule? Do you celebrate Yule and Christmas? What are you guys doing? It's such a weird time, and I'm hoping that down the road I'll have more pagan friends in the area that I'll be able to invite over maybe next year. So I'll have a bigger Yule celebration than I will be doing this year. Let's see. I'm checking your comments here. Yeah, a lot of you guys seem to be doing the same thing, doing a celebration on Yule, but then also having a bigger family celebration on the 25th as well. Yeah, and I think that's totally fine. You don't have to feel guilty as a pagan if you're celebrating Christmas. You can kind of look at it as the birth of the Roman god Mithra, which happened on December 25th too, if that makes you feel better. But yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know that each pagan does it differently. So if you celebrate both, that's fine, So lots of things you can do on Yule. One of the things that I like to do some years is a bit of a cleansing ritual. So because Yule represents a time where on the actual solstice, it's the shortest day, but from that point on, the length of the day increases. It's kind of like this kind of kickstart of energy, and this new stage in the wheel of the year. So I will sometimes do kind of a little cleansing ritual on Yule, and that can be mundane, like just decluttering, doing some Marie Kondo stuff, cleaning, things like that. But I'll also take some incense around to the corners of the room, the entranceways, the doorways, the windows, trying to cleanse the energy of my apartment as well. So that's one really simple thing you can think about doing. Another fun activity, especially if you're into crafts, is the Yule Log tradition that does go way back. And for Yule Logs, usually you can just, find a log, a piece of wood, and you can decorate it. Some people decorate with pine cones or bits of pine. And the pine will usually, kind of create this nice scent in the fire as well. Some people also will write little kind of wishes for the next year on pieces of paper and stick it inside the Yule log. So you're basically decorating the log and then you burn it. And then burning is that active energy that sends those intentions out into the universe. You can burn it in a fireplace if you have one. Even better, outside in a fire pit. Though if you don't have any ability to have a fire, you can drill just some holes in the piece of wood, put some taper candles on there, and then light the candles. So that's an option as well. Or if you're into some kitchen witchery, a Yule Log Cake is a popular thing people do. From all religions, people like to make Yule Log cakes. So you could make the cake and then kind of putting your intentions into the cake as you're cooking. And then when you're eating it, you're kind of absorbing that energy into your body. So different ways of doing the Yule log tradition, but that's really fun. I know that some people will actually save the maypole from their Beltane celebration. So way back in May, when you celebrate Beltane and you have the maypole, some traditions will chop up the maypole into pieces. And then those pieces become the wood that's used for the Yule log. I love that concept. Let me know if any of you guys have done that before. I haven't, but I think that could be really fun. Let me check your comments here before I jump into the next idea. Let's see. Oh, I see someone's mentioning for the Yule log cake, making a flambe using cognac. That sounds lovely. I'm always too scared to do like flambes in the kitchen, even though I do love cooking, but maybe I should get my bravery up and give it a try. Let's see. Yep, some of you guys are mentioning that you also do the Yule log tradition or that you just decorate with the Yule log. Let me check your comments here. Some of you guys are mentioning making the edible version of Yule log this year. Let's see. Yeah, so that's a really, just fun little tradition you can do. Another thing that is good for Yule and for really any Sabbath is to go for a nature walk. And especially this year, keep an eye out for the Great Conjunction on your nature walk. But going for a nature walk, taking note of the seasonal changes, spending time away from technology, being unplugged in the natural world, trying to notice those subtle indicators that we are in the shortest day of the year, listening to the bird song, seeing the plants, what grows around you. Especially if you're into traditional witchcraft, which is all about understanding your local environment, what plants grow, what animals are there, working with the energies of where you live locally. So going on a nature walk is a great thing to do. And if you want to help out the animals in the area, you can bring some bird seed with you. You can scatter that around. Or some people will do bird treats where you put like the peanut butter and the pine cones, put it in bird seed, hang it up in the tree. That can be a really lovely way to kind of honor the animal spirits in your area and the animals that are alive in your area. Of course, you can give an offering to a deity. I usually like to do this outside, so I will take some fruits and vegetables, maybe a little wine or mead, and then I will give the offering outside. Now, there are different deities that you could give an offering to for Yule. You can, of course, give an offering if you have a patron god or goddess. You could give the offering to them. Though I think last time on Pagan Happy Hour, we did talk a bit about different deities that are commonly associated with this time of year. So, if you have a specific god or goddess that you connect to the winter solstice, then that would be a great deity to leave an offering for. So yeah, definitely going for a nature walk. That's something I do every year, or at least I try to on each of the Sabbaths, actually. So I really can notice those subtle changes in the wheel of the year. Any type of kitchen magic in general is fun to do this time of year. I mean, we're all making cookies anyway, right? We're already baking. So let's just put a little extra intention into our baking. So I've seen pictures of people who are really good at baking cookies and doing royal icing and then inserting pagan symbols. I thought that was cool. I might give that a try this Yule. I am not the most artistic when it comes to my baking, but I love the idea of putting symbols on cookies, Christmas cookies, and then eating them. It's very chaos magic to me too, in a way. So let me know if you've ever done that. I think that's kind of a fun idea. Another thing you can do is make wassail. We were just talking about wassailing. Wassail is a drink. Oftentimes, it's like a spiced wine or a mulled cider with alcohol in it. But there are many different variations of wassail, and it does have some fascinating pagan origins. A lot of versions of wassail actually come from the ancient Roman drink called hippocras. So you can find tons of recipes online for wassail. So that can be a fun thing to do. Let me take another sip here and check your comments. Let's see. You guys are leaving some great comments. Oh, interesting. Someone mentions they like to give thanks to the Mayan goddess of chocolate for the hot chocolates they make. That's very cool. I would try and pronounce that name, but I know I would do it injustice. I'm horrible at pronouncing things. Jeez. Let's see. Someone mentions the cookie idea, making Mjolnir-shaped cookies. Love the idea. Does anyone know of any cookie cutter shapes that are like Mjolnir or like a Celtic triple spiral or something like that? I would love to buy something like that. Make the practice of making pagan-inspired cookies even easier. Oh, I see a great idea here. Someone mentions, I draw a sigil in the snow and I place a white candle in the middle surrounded by orange slices. That sounds very lovely. I love that idea. Let's see. Oh, I see some people are asking about wassail. I definitely recommend looking it up. It's really neat, but I'll also be publishing my video all about the wassail tradition on Monday, so keep an eye out for that. Oh, I see someone mentions, going back to the cookie idea, that they have a Yule goat cookie cutter. Well, now I'm obsessed with Yule goats ever since I made that video, so I'm definitely going to have to keep an eye out for that. Let me see. And I see someone's mentioning the Southern Hemisphere, and good point. I don't want to leave you guys out because for you guys, it's Litha, so it's the summer, kind of like the summer solstice. So I'm of the belief that you should celebrate in relation to your current climate. So even though it's Yule here, you probably shouldn't be celebrating it the same way I would be celebrating it. I would recommend celebrating it more like Litha or the summer solstice. That's a great point. Let's see. Checking your comments here. So many good notes. I see someone mentions that they have a small shrine in their garden that they leave offerings to there. And I currently live in an apartment building, so I don't have a backyard. So I unfortunately don't have that ability. But as soon as I do, eventually buy a house and have a backyard, I'm really excited about setting up my pagan shrine outside. I have so many ideas. I just need to save up enough to get myself a house. Let's see. So yeah, on to the next. So another thing you can, of course, do is decorate your altar for Yule if you have not already. I usually will decorate my altar a couple weeks before the solstice or before the Sabbath, but if you haven't decorated yet, doing it on the solstice is totally fine as well. Everyone has different ways that they do altars. Back in my previous apartment, I had a fireplace, and I used the mantle of the fireplace as an altar, and then I had a secondary smaller altar that I used kind of as part of my bookshelf. In this apartment, I have a kind of this really neat built-in bookshelf with like 7 shelves, and I actually use that as my altar space in this apartment. And I think I've shown that on like my Instagram and like a few other places. So I'm always kind of changing up what my altar looks like based on the seasons, but also as I move from place to place, how I do my altar changes as well. But this can be a great time to clean your altar off, you know, going way back to that first tip of thinking about the day as an opportunity to cleanse the space. So you can use Yule as a time to clear and clean your altar and then lay everything out on it. Different things you can put on your altar. You can put idols of different deities that you work with, of course, incense, candles. If you'd like to decorate it for Yule, you can leave in a little offering bowl, maybe put some wassail in there or some mead. You could leave offerings of like fruit or something like that on your altar as well. So when it comes to altar decoration, it's really what you connect with. So my altar has evolved and changed over the years. I have plenty of decorating my altar videos on YouTube over the past few years. So if you're interested, you can see how I did my altar decoration last year. I'm a big fan of incorporating natural materials on my altar. So when I go on my nature walk, I'm always pulling, you know, plants and different things that I feel connect with the season and bringing that into my home and placing it on my altar in a lot of cases. So that's very fun. I mean, I like decorating anyway, so it's something I really enjoy each season. So let's see. Another thing you can do if you're into divination. In general, Yule isn't as much of a divination Sabbath compared to Samhain, of course, but it's still a great time to do divination. There are a lot of different Yule-themed tarot spreads if you're into that, or even Yule-themed rune spreads that you can find. I actually think Pinterest is a great place. If you type in like Yule tarot spread, you'll see a lot of them. But I'm of mind too that you can create your own tarot spreads or rune spreads. So if you have an idea in mind, there's nothing stopping you from going for it. And going back to altar decoration, I always pick out a few cards to put on my altar from one of my tarot decks. I think that's a great way to have easy, simple altar decoration as well. This time of year, I'm usually always pulling out the Hermit. I have the Hermit on my altar right now because that's definitely a card that I connect with the god Odin, but also the Hermit is kind of what we're all doing right now, right? We're all kind of being very hermit-esque this holiday season. So let's see. Another thing you can do is, of course, decorate the Yule tree if you have not already done so. Though I imagine many of you probably have already decorated a tree. I usually do mine in like the first week or so in December, but that's definitely something you can do on Yule as well. And another great thing I like to do if I'm up for it. So Yule is the shortest day of the year, but the following sunrise represents kind of this new stage. So we kind of made it through the darkest part of the year, and now the days are going to slowly but surely get longer and brighter. So the day, or the morning, I should say, right after Yule, I like to wake up early and catch the sunrise if I can, because that to me really represents kind of this rebirth of the sun. And that is a popular theme you'll see in pretty much all historic representations of Yule. You can think about the winter solstice as celebrated at Stonehenge, right? We are celebrating the rebirth of the sun. So that's a really common theme. And I think it's a great thing to do if you're up for waking up early. So those were a few, easy, simple Yule activities. Give one or two a try, especially if you're new. And I'd love to hear from you guys if you have anything else that you like to do each year for Yule that I didn't mention, or any other ideas that I can bring into the conversation. Or if you just have any questions in general that I can answer for you. So definitely type away. I'm going to look through your comments here, have a bit more of my wine, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have about Yule or anything else. Let's see, Dylan has a good question. Let's see, he says, I was wondering what stories and myths you would tell around Yule from the Norse pantheon. This is a good question, and I'm not sure I have an answer off the bat. Are there any Norse myths that take place in or around Yule? Oh, I see, someone came up with it, Balder and Mistletoe. That's a good one, right? Because mistletoe actually has Norse pagan origins. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Balder's mother protected him from being killed and went around to all of the plants and made sure that they wouldn't hurt him except for one plant, which was the mistletoe. And was it Loki that then tricked, starts with an H. Does it start with an H? One of the other gods to shoot an arrow blindfolded and shoot it at Balder. Everyone thought, it's not going to hit him. It's not going to kill him. But it was an arrow made of mistletoe. I could have that myth wrong, but let me know if I'm right on that. But that is a great story that is, kind of connected to Yule through the mistletoe concept. Hodor. Yes, that is the one that was shooting the arrow. So thank you for letting me know. But yeah, that's a great Norse myth that's tied to this time. I see someone's mentioning here another idea. Molly is saying, I was thinking of staying up and keeping the fire burning all night. It would be a nice way to mark the longest night. I love that idea because when we think about Yule and how it is this representation of a dark time, it's also celebrating human abilities to survive, right? And we survive through community, through intelligence, through innovation, through knowledge. And we created a society. We created agriculture. We created a world where we could survive the winter in these northern climates. And that's pretty impressive. So creating a fire and having it burn all night is a way to tap back in almost to our Stone Age ancestors, who likewise would have kept the fire going in these times of great darkness. I love that idea. Let's see, what else are you guys saying? I see, let's see, Meredith here has a comment about reading someone's tradition of lighting a candle every hour throughout the night of solstice until day. That's really interesting as well. Another thing I was hearing lately is I listened to this podcast called The Fair Folk, and she was interviewing a scholar about pagan holiday traditions. The majority of the episode was about the tradition of mumming, which is really neat, and I kind of get into that in my wassail video coming on Monday. But he was also talking about, especially in the Norse pantheon, how winter was a time of the feminine and a time to celebrate death. And how interesting it is that so many death deities, such as Hel from the Norse pantheon, are women. And that perhaps there was a worldview that's very different from nowadays. We kind of view life and death as opposites, but perhaps in the pagan worldview, life and death are connected, and because women birth life, we're also in charge of ending life in a way. Like maybe it's the woman that births the soul into the afterlife. So there's this interesting connection of feminine deities that are associated with the afterlife. I was even thinking from the Greek tradition, of course, you have Hades, but then you also have Persephone. So traditionally, women have had this role in society as the mystic, as the ones that can see the future, as the ones that can divine or be the oracle. And perhaps that power comes from the fact that often women are ruling over the afterlife. It's not so much that we are seeing the future, it's that we know the afterlife and that time is kind of not as linear as we think. And it was a really fascinating discussion. But it was neat in a lot of ways because, you know, it's something that I hadn't really thought of before. And at first glance, it's kind of like, oh, that's kind of weird. But I kind of embrace it too. You know, I think it's really cool. Like that's one thing that women have always had since time began. We've always been the ones that have naturally connected to the afterlife, to kind of the future, being an oracle. You think, of course, the famous oracles, Oracle of Delphi, they're always women. Or from the Norse pantheon, the Vova, who would use her staff and chant in order to kind of like see into the future in a lot of ways. So really neat, and I think it brings kind of an extra importance to Yule as a female pagan. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you, and you know, it was just something I found interesting. Oh, let's see. I see Dylan has a comment here in terms of death and women. Writer witnessed a Viking funeral and noted the priest presiding over it was a woman called the Angel of Death. Very interesting. Yeah. There's just something about, even, like, of course, the Valkyries being those that take the dead into the afterlife, or from the Celtic tradition, the Morgan. There's really something about women being the ones that carry the souls into the afterlife, or the ones that take care of those souls. I think Freya in the Norse tradition, she gets half of the dead no matter what. So some people might make it to Valhalla and make it to Odin's realm, but Freya just gets half of them. So I found that was interesting as well. Let's see. Checking your comments here. I see someone mentions the Morgan as the goddess of war in Ireland. Yes, definitely. And her symbol is the raven or a crow, as is Odin's symbol, the two ravens, thought and memory. So that's neat too. Morgan, Odin, symbol of ravens, and ravens have appeared in just about every culture as an important animal, an animal that transports those often into the afterlife. I believe Erith Hagar had a really great video about ravens and crows recently. I would recommend checking that out. Let's see, I see here a mention about Hulda, which is Freya in the Norse pantheon, but the German version of it, I believe, and she guides the souls of dead babies into the other world. Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because childbirth itself is often dealing with death. At least historically, women would die, babies would die. There's a lot of death involved in childbirth. So birth and death were intertwined very significantly in ancient times, and still are to a certain extent. I mean, it's pretty much one of the more dangerous things women can do. I do not have any children, so I haven't had that experience. But yeah, I think that's really neat. Let's see. Yeah, you know, there's a lot of deep thoughts, you know, deep thinking that can occur at Yule. I wonder what it would have been like for our ancestors at this darkest time of the year, especially when you think about the northern climates where it's very dark. For many hours, and how terrifying that would be, but also how amazing and exciting it would be at the solstice when you know that the sun's power is returning, even if just a little bit. It's kind of like that first glimmer of hope. I always think about Imbolc too, which is like February 1st. And when I was starting out in Wicca, you know, I celebrated Imbolc definitely, and I still do. And that was symbolized by the snowdrop flower or by the lambing, so the lambs giving birth. So those earliest signs of spring. So at the winter solstice, there is no early signs of spring yet. It's just a hope that the sun's energy will increase. And then maybe at Imbolc, you might get a couple signs. Of course, that's more based on the British tradition. So maybe in Britain, you get a few signs of spring in early February. But when I was living in Chicago, we definitely did not have snowdrops that early. But that's another reason why you gotta take the wheel of the year as it comes to you and where you live in your climate, because it's going to be different for us all. Let me see your comments here. One sec. This is going to be a weird time, or a weird solstice for me as well, because this is my first year in Texas. I've lived mostly in northern climates my entire life, and it's kind of weird not having any snow. On the one hand, I'm enjoying it. I do get to, you know, dress in more cute outfits because it's not miserably cold. But at the same time, I do miss that quite a bit. I do miss the snow. I do miss the feeling like it really is Yule, the solstice is really coming, you know? So yeah. Feel free to put any last questions. If you have any last questions for me, this is going to be our last Pagan happy hour until Yule. So feel free to put in any questions. I probably won't be doing a happy hour next week. I think next Friday, is that actually on Christmas? So we'll probably revisit the Pagan happy hours into the New Year. So let me check my calendar real quick so I can see. Yeah, so we won't be doing a happy hour next Friday, but the following Friday is January 1st. Very interesting. Maybe we'll be doing a special New Year's edition of Pagan happy hour. I'll bring out the champagne. We'll go over different ways to celebrate the New Year, or maybe how the New Year was celebrated in pagan societies, and then maybe take a bit of a more witchy twist, different spells, charms you can do for the New Year. So yeah, I think we'll probably do our next Pagan happy hour January 1st. How exciting is that? I cannot wait for 2021. I am ready for this year to be done with. I don't know about you guys, but I imagine you feel the same, even though obviously it's not like we're going to flip a switch. It's 2021 and everything's back to normal, but I am still excited for the new year, and I'm excited to be done with this year. So thank you guys so much for joining me for Pagan Happy Hour. This has been so fun. I think this is our 9th edition, and I really enjoyed chatting with you, hearing your comments, bringing you guys into the conversation. And I want to wish you a absolutely, positively wonderful Yule. I love thinking about how we will all be celebrating Yule this year in our own ways. But I'll be cheersing you on Yule, and hey, maybe you'll give a cheers back. And I want to wish you guys all the best. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you guys in the new year. Bye.